Hello students, welcome to biology. This is Dr Saurabh R Mhatre from Shri RLT College of Science, Akola. So in last lecture we have learned about circulatory system of cockroach. So in today's lecture we are going to learn about respiratory system or tracheal system of cockroaches. Cockroaches have internal type of respiratory system of air tubes called tracheal system. Respiratory system of cockroach is also known as tracheal system because it having air tubes by which air is brought into the body and is contact with every part of the body, means that is tracheal system. So it allows exchange of gases directly between air and the tissue without need of blood. It is the main difference between human circulatory and respiratory system and cockroaches respiratory and circulatory systems, because in cockroaches it's allow exchange of gases directly between the air and tissue without need of blood. So in the respiratory system there is spiracles. Spiracles are respiratory openings. Spiracles are respiratory openings. They are paired, present on ventrolateral side of the body of cockroach in pleural membrane. Spiracles are paired, present in ventrolateral side of body in pleural membrane. Cockroaches have 2 pairs of thoracic and 8 pairs of abdominal spiracles. Total 10 pairs. Cockroaches have 2 pairs of thoracic and 8 pairs of abdominal spiracles. Total 10 pairs of spiracles. The spiracles opens into a series of air sacs from which the tubes called as trachea arises. Spiracles open into a series of air sacs from which the tubes called trachea arises. So after spiracles, trachea. The trachea from definite pattern of branching tubes arranged transversely as well as longitudinally. Trachea form a definite pattern of branching tubes. Trachea form a definite pattern of branching tubes arranged transversely as well as longitudinally. Trachea are about 1 millimeter thick and have spiral or annular thickening of chitin. Chitin, that is protein, present in the spiracle, in the trachea of the cockroach. The inner lining of chitin prevents the trachea from collapsing. Inner lining of chitin prevents the trachea from collapsing. It do not get collapsed due to which? Due to the chitin. Each trachea branches into number of smaller tubes called tracheoles. Each trachea branches into numbers of smaller tubes called as tracheoles. So these tracheoles are fine intracellular tubes. These trachea are fine. Tracheoles are fine, which are branch of trachea. Branches of trachea in smaller tubes are known as tracheoles. So these tracheoles are fine intracellular tubes that penetrate deep into the tissue. So they are thin and not lined with chitin. Trachea are lined with chitin, but tracheoles are not lined with chitin. That is the main difference. Tracheole end blindly into the cells. Each tracheole at the blind end is filled with a watery fluid through which exchange of gases takes place. Tracheal fluid, that is known as tracheal fluid, that is watery fluid. Through that watery fluid, tracheal fluid, exchange of gases takes place. the content of this fluid keeps changing. Content of this tracheal fluid or watery fluid gets changed. At high muscular activity, a part of fluid is drawn into the tissue to enable more and rapid oxygen intake. Due to high muscular activity, a part of fluid is drawn into a tissue to enable more and rapid oxygen intake. The rhythmic movement of thoracic and abdominal muscles renew the air into the tracheal system. This is very interesting. The rhythmic movement of thoracic and abdominal muscles renew the air of tracheal system of cockroach. The body fluid does not disturb the gases but simply acts as a stationary medium for diffusion. Body fluid does not disturb any gases, but it simply acts as a stationary medium for diffusion. Stationary medium for diffusion. So, this is all about respiratory system. So, in respiratory system, there are spiracles, trachea, and tracheoles. So, in the diagram of respiratory system, here are spiracles. First of all, chitin of body wall, that is white in color. Then at between there are spiracles which is chitinous lining. Then after to this chitinous lining, outer to this chitinous lining, there is epithelium present. Then in this epithelium there is filled lumen. In chitinous lining at the end there is lumen. Then small trachea are present. So these trachea are branched into the tracheoles, which are gets branched into tracheoles. So these tracheoles having ends directly into the muscle fiber, means directly into the tissue, that are deeply penetrated into the muscle fiber, that is in the tissue. So in between the tissue and tracheoles, there is a at the end of tracheoles, there is a tracheal fluid field. At the end of tracheoles, there is a fluid field. That fluid field is known as tracheal fluid. That is watery fluid. So it acts as a diffusion simply. It acts as a diffusion purpose. And due to this fluid, tracheal fluid, the exchange of gases takes place. That fluid helps for the diffusion purpose. It do not disturb the gases exchange, but it simply acts as a stationary medium for the diffusion purpose. So in this respiratory system of cockroaches, that is also known as tracheal system of cockroach, having internal type of tracheal system. So it directly allows the air between tissue, directly exchange gases directly between the air and tissue. So these air and tissue exchange takes place through the tracheal fluid. So this tracheal fluid is very important for the exchange of gases, because air and directly tissues are responsible for exchange. So here is directly internal type of respiratory system present. So there are three main parts: spiracles, which are having 10 pairs of spiracles. 2 pairs are thoracic and 8 pairs of abdominal spiracles. Then these spiracles having in between trachea are definite pattern. transversely as well as longitudinally, 1 millimeter thick. It is having spiral and annular thickening of chitin. It prevents the trachea from collapsing. Chitinous thickening, annular spiral chitinous thickening is to prevent trachea collapsing. So then trachea are branched into smaller tubes known as tracheoles. Tracheoles are deep penetrated into tissue. They are not lined with chitin. So ends of these tracheoles have tracheal fluid. That fluid drawn into the tissue and enables more rapid exchange of oxygen. Then rhythmic movement of thoracic and abdominal muscles renew the air in tracheal system. The blood fluid does not disturb the gases. The body fluid does not disturb the gases, body fluid, but it simply acts as a diffusion. It acts for the diffusion. So this is all about the respiratory system of cockroaches. Thank you, students.